Hey guys, this is Less is More, back with another video. So today we're going to be talking about a low jack open versus a button cold collar. So this spot isn't studied as much as it should be, in my opinion. People look mostly at big blind versus imposition spots. So this will be a good change of pace, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misplay that goes on in these spots. So I'm here to dispel some of those things. So the first board we'll look at is a 7 deuce rainbow. Again, a low jack open versus a button cold collar. So on these disconnected boards, well, first we have to talk about pre-flop. So when the low jack opens and the button is faced with a decision, they're only incentivized to put money into the pot with hands that make money versus the low jack open range. So if their hand isn't generating expectation against their opens, they have no incentive to put more money in the pot. So they would just fold. So in theory, the cold caller should have a stronger range. So on these dry disconnected boards, generally on disconnected boards, the strength of the range is going to stay relatively intact going to the flop. Uh, Basically, what I mean is if a range is stronger pre-flop, that range is going to stay stronger post when the board is like ragged or disconnected. Like the rank of the top card does affect a good bit, but um, we'll go ahead and take a look at the spot and discuss a little bit. So, yeah, the imposition cold caller is going to have a stronger range. We see on this board the out of position player is at a range disadvantage, at an equity disadvantage at 48.5. Yeah, and then after the out of position check, the imposition player will have somewhere in the 52 to 53% range in these different lines. In the bet line, obviously imposition equity will go down, but yeah, like on this flop, the out of position player will have a slight equity disadvantage, but also the out of position player will have to play later streets out of position. If we looked at the spot like button versus big blind, you would see the imposition player betting a lot. Obviously, they're going to have a much stronger range advantage because the big blind is going to be defending extremely wide to a button open, whereas this is not the case. But also, the imposition player is going to be able to play turns and rivers in position. So, yeah. But sort of what I want to get across here is that we like on these disconnected boards, we can't get away with range betting, especially if the imposition range looks anything like equilibrium. So here's the imposition range. It's like middling pocket pairs, some suited connectors, and some suited ace-x, and some of these suited broadways at mixed frequencies, and a lot of ace-queen. But yeah, a lot of middling pairs and like some stronger ace-x suited. Which, if you look at our range, it's a lot of, I mean, all the way down to king 5 suited, all the ace-x suited. And we have a lot of these offsuit Broadway cards, which will significantly weaken our range on dry flops. And then we'll see like on like double Broadway boards, for example, this will change things for the out of position player. But the main takeaway is that we'll have the out of position player will have a lot of whiff Broadways on these dry disconnected boards that the imposition player won't. They're not flatting like the king jack off, queen jack off, and just a small fraction of king queen off. So that's sort of the takeaway. So yeah, the out of position player is going to be checking a lot. It'll take some bets with the top of its range, like the ace king, ace queen, and then like some strong gut shots to the nuts. Yeah, and then like some lower pairs and backdoors, and just sprinkle in um, some backdoor type hands. Um, so yeah, but after we check, um, the imposition player is going to be um, betting with a pretty small portion of its range. So remember, the imposition player is tight. So a significant portion of the imposition player's range is going to be pocket pairs and ace-x suited. So like on this board, the imposition player's going to have a much higher density of sets and two pairs. See if we look at the percentages. The out of position player will have more ace-7 as a percentage of the range, but the in position player will have 4.5% sets, whereas the out of position player is at a pretty significant disadvantage there. And then, yeah, the in position player is going to be going to have an advantage, and well, not so much an advantage, but just a pretty high density and stronger ace-x, just because that's the ace-x that makes money against the open range. So it wouldn't really make sense to put money into the pot with ace-2 suited or much of ace-6 suited um, against a low jack open. So certainly going to be the imposition player is going to have incentive to put money into the pot with the stronger portion of its ace-x and sets. So there's going to be like some small betting with ace-x, and then yeah, mixing sets into a small bet and an overbet size on the flop. Yeah, and then so versus a small bet, there's going to be a bit of check raising, but it's mostly just check calling. That is the out of position player, that is. Just because the in position player is going to be betting on later streets, so the out of position player can just delay a lot of check raises to the turn and just let the in position player bet for them, since the in position betting range is supposed to be pretty strong. So that's sort of the flop overview. Like on these dry disconnected boards, don't c-bet so much as the out of position player. You can take some bets with the top of your range, but do let the in position player do a lot of the betting for you, since their range will be stronger. So yeah, so now we'll look at a double Broadway board. So ace king deuce. The out of position player is going to have an advantage in ace king, obviously, since the in position player is going to be three betting all its ace king. So you'll actually see some overbets on this board. If you run this board button versus big blind, you'll see a lot of 2x pot for the in position player, and you'll just see the in position player pile money in and manage to get stacks in by the river on lots of different runouts with top two. So yeah, the in position or the out position player, I mean, is going to have a significant nut advantage on this board, just because of the presence of ace king. So this ace king will go into the 2x size for the most part. You know, some of these higher sets will go into the quarter pot size. You'll see this quarter pot size become implemented a lot on double Broadway boards, where the out of position player, remember we talked about how the out of position player is going to have a lot of the offsuit king x and queen x that the in position player won't be flatting. So like on these double Broadway boards, it's just going to interact so much more heavily with the out of position player with the PFR range, that we can start to do some small betting with a good chunk of top pair and second pair. So yeah, just because the in position player isn't going to be betting a ton on uh, boards that are interacting so heavily with the out of position player's range. Um, the in position player on this type of board is going to prefer to like bet some of its stronger ace X, but it's certainly at a nut disadvantage, so it's not going to be able to just pile loads of money in with a significant portion of its range. So yeah, that's sort of the idea. The in position player's just going for a paw size here. Yeah, just because you're like you're not going to want to do much thin value betting on this board. So yeah, look at another double Broadway board. So here's King 10-3 rainbow. Again, you'll see a lot of quarter pot become implemented. So it's this is nearly a range bet. There's going to be like some checking with like the ace 6, ace 5, no backdoor. Just like some hands without a backdoor, but really any hand that has anything going for it is going to see bet for at least a small size on this board, and then you can like mix in some half pot. But yeah, you could really get away with just a quarter pot range bet on this board. Yeah, and if we check, we see again the in position player polarizing for the most part, mostly to pot. With the top portion of its range. So yeah, look through the rest of these. So here's we'll do Queen 10-6 first. Yeah, so Queen 10-6. Yeah, the out of position player isn't going to have as much. Queen X off, like the out of position player is going to have more King Jack off and King 10 off than and King Queen off than Queen Jack off and Queen 10 off. And the in position player is going to have ace queen off at a high frequency, and a lot of queen jack and king queen, and some king queen off. But yeah, these queen high boards, the betting frequency is going to go down for the out of position player. We see the out of position player betting at about a 50% frequency, strictly for the small size. So yeah, we see the in position player doing a lot more betting on this board. I suspect because of the presence of ace queen off and some of these stronger queen X, and pocket tens, of course, is going to be there. Pocket tens and pocket sixes is going to be there at a high frequency. So yeah, that's going to make those nutted hands are going to make up a significant portion of the in position player's range. Yeah, I mean, we see, yeah, 15% of in position's range is top pair, and almost 6% are sets, so that's a pretty significant portion. Yep, so then let's look at this Queen 5-4 board. We're going to see the betting frequency for out of position go down quite a bit. It's a queen high board, so the out of position player's range isn't going to interact as heavily. But also the 5 and the 4 are going to interact much more heavily with the in position player's range, just because of the density of middling to low pocket pairs, like 5% of sets. Yeah, and then again, a lot of top pair on this board for the in position player. So yeah, and the in position player is going to be doing a lot of betting these middling pocket pairs. But yeah, again, in position is going to have all this all this ace queen off and sets and stuff. So, but yeah, the frequency of betting going down out of position is mostly just a function of the queen, the single queen isn't going to do as much for the out of position players like a single king, for example. Yeah, it's just going to drive the frequency down significantly. So yeah, I'll just go into turn play just for a second. I mostly just wanted to talk about the flop and get a quick overview. So let's say like after check check on this board, like a blank deuce, we're going to see the out of position player piling in 4x pot with ace king and two pair, like pretty much two pair and like pocket sevens. Yeah, so the out of position player will have a portion of its range, ace king for example, that wants to get the money in against, because like if we 4x pot, the in position player is going to be calling a good amount of ace x. So yeah, and if we go like bet with ace king, and we jam river, like we're going to be getting money in against a good amount of worse ace x. So it's sort of the idea, and then we'll have like a half pot size for weaker ace x. But like this other ace x is stuff that the in position player has as well. Like it doesn't make sense to 4x pot with ace jack because like we're not getting called by anything. Like a significant portion of the in position player's range isn't going to stack off on the river with worse than ace jack. I mean, typically we don't want to be like piling in for value with a hand that is folding out better hands, because then it's a bluff. It's not a value bet. So yeah, we're just going to be going for this half pot size, and then you see like all the ace x for the in position player is calling, and then even a lot of these middling to low pocket pairs. So yeah, that's sort of the idea. But basically, the out of position player in these spots will have ace king that the in position player won't. So on these ace high and king high boards, you're going to want to do a lot of overbetting in the check check line on the turn without that nutted portion of your range. I haven't looked at these other boards on the turn. I'm sort of curious, like on this queen 10-6 after check check. Yeah, there's some 2x pot with over pairs and bottom set, it looks like, and two pair. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to do overbetting on the turn. I suspect on the king 10-3 board there would be some overbetting on the turn. Yeah, a tad, but ace king is mostly going to be betting on the flop, so it doesn't really get here much. So not as much incentive to overbet, but it'll do some half potting and potting with the medium strength king x. So that's sort of the idea. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.